Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Suchon.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are heading to Los Angeles, California, and topics this week: public relations, consulting, and video games. Yes, video games. Not just plain video games, but figuring out a way to take video games, a passion for video games, and turning that into your career. Our guest is Dustin Winn. He attended San Diego State in the early 2010s. He is a video game PR executive and the co-founder of a company called Ember PR. Dustin, wonderful to meet you. I cannot wait to find out how you took a lifelong passion for gaming and turned it into a career. Welcome to the Where You At podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. I'm really excited. Like I told you when we were trading emails, I was wondering if I was ever going to get on this cool show, and here I am. So pretty excited.
So I know that this is the lowest of low-hanging fruit, but I have to start with the ultimate cliche. How many times in your life did someone tell you, stop playing video games, this will never help you in life, what is the point of playing video games? And now here you are working in the video game industry.
Quite a bit, especially, as a millennial, like video games kind of transition in that time frame from being the games that you can pause and just come back to later to then like being like live all the time, where like you can't really get trying to get that through to your parents at 14, or like, go do the dishes. And I'm like, Mom, if I stop right now, I lose the game because I can't pause. I'm playing a real person somewhere in like New York. And like, that was a real struggle for a long time. But as a parent now, I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. They will get the benefit of knowing that Dad understands.
Okay, so we're going to trace the journey of how this came to be. But let's start with the elevator pitch. If someone is listening right away, when did you realize that I can take my passion for gaming and turn this into a career?
I never really did. Josh, I told you I was going to hit you with a surprise answer here. I never really did, only because, you're kind of told so often that, like gaming, like, oh, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? And it wasn't until my first job in the industry, I was a account coordinator at Grayling US, and I got to work on Blizzard Entertainment, which was like one of my favorite video game companies growing up. That's when like I was kind of like, oh my God, like I can actually do this. Because when I was at State, wanting to go into agency, I was like very obsessed with like Porter Novelli, Fleischman Hillard, Edelman, wanting to work at like one of the big agencies. And so I was always telling myself, like, it doesn't matter what clients I work on, I will become a mini expert in that field, and I will, rock it. Awesome. And then, because all my classmates are like, I want to work in fashion, I want to work in entertainment, I want to work in this specifically. And I was like, man, the odds that happens are so low. Like you're probably going to be working on like Uncle Ben's rice, like I did as an intern at Porter Novelli, like doing something you totally don't have any passion about. And then I got that job with Grayling, my first full-time non-internship. And I got to work on video games. And I was like, everything I said during college was wrong, because it's so important to work on something you're passionate about. I pivoted that role into a role at the next agency, which was a complete video game agency. That's all they really do. They're like really considered the best in the business. So yeah, it's been exciting. But I think kids these days have more advantage because gaming is so much bigger than it even was 10 years ago. The roles and opportunities that are there. But yeah, man, going to college, and as a kid, I never really thought I'd probably work in the industry. I thought I'd be working on some boring thing and doing my thing with that.
So a couple of things about big picture in the gaming industry that I learned recently. Number one, there's more people who watch people play video games than people who play video games, which blew my mind. And then as I was taking notes for this podcast, I thought, I just wrote down $1 billion industry. And I figured, yeah, it's probably $1 billion industry. And then I looked it up. It's basically a $100 billion industry. So for people who might know a little, or maybe they know a lot, what else do we need to know about the gaming industry and all of the tentacles that are involved with it?
I think the thing that people need to understand is, especially like tying this back to the SDSU students, any of you that are listening, is that you can basically apply any major that you're studying or any skills that you have and find a job within gaming. I have a lot of people that I'll interview or have interviewed in the past. They're like, I studied public relations because I wanted to work in gaming. I wanted to work in gaming, so I just found a job maybe I could use to get into PR. And like, honestly, like so many people frown upon that approach. Like, become a master at your craft. Like, I am first and foremost a public relations person. That was something like I was passionate about when I was looking to join SDSU. Like, I was looking at the PR major and studying that because I'm a great writer and I'm a critical thinker. I'm a problem solver. So those are my skills. Went into PR, and then I was able to apply them now to an industry I'm passionate about. So, if you're interested in getting in gaming, think about like, what do you love doing as a job? Whether that's like PR, marketing, analytics, whatever it could be, and then figure out how you can apply that to gaming. Don't just pick a career because you want to work in games. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, like gaming is everywhere, whether it's mobile, console, PC, VR, AR. There's tons of different things in it now. And really, like I said, you can find a job with almost any background that you have if you want to work in gaming without having to like go back to school and get a new degree or start at the bottom and work your way back up.
All right. So you started to discuss public relations in San Diego State. Let's rewind to when you're a teenager. What was it that made you want to go to San Diego State? And tell us more about why PR intrigued you so much.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually went to state when I was 24. I went back to school, and like, honestly, man, through my early 20s and teens, I just could not figure out what I wanted to do. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a CHP officer. Oh, I'm going to, operating engineers. I mean, like every 6 months, as a running joke with my buddy, who'd be like, what's your career path now, Dustin? Because I was just constantly changing, what I wanted to do. And my dad was always like, you should just be a journalist. You're a great writer. You just be a journalist. I was like, Dad, there's no money in journalism. So I was like, but you know what? This is actually from playing video games. I used to be like in a top 5 worldwide guild for World of Warcraft. And I was always the person in the guild whenever like there was discourse between people, especially like very important people, to make sure we were being successful in what we were doing. I was always sent in to be like, hey, go make these two people like each other again, And so I was like, okay, God, that's cool. So like, I just kind of was like, man, taking this like critical thinking, like relationship building skill that I have, and then applying it also to writing, I just kind of was like, man, PR sounds like the perfect role for me. So I started doing a lot of research on like, what are the best schools for PR? And I found some website, I don't even remember what it was or if it was credible or not, but I had SDSU ranked as like the 6th best PR program in the nation. And I was like, whoa, they're down the street from me. I live in LA, they're in San Diego. That's awesome. I need to go there. So I applied to Fullerton also. And because at the time, it's probably worse now, honestly, state had a like 10% acceptance rate if you didn't live in San Diego County. It's like impossible to get into. So I had no hope that I was going to get into state. So I applied to Fullerton, got into Fullerton. I was like, cool, they got to get a PR program too. They're a little bit closer to my house. And then February, March rolls around and I get the acceptance letter from state. And I'm like, boom, whole life changing. Here we go. We're going to San Diego, people. So it was a blast, and it was just a whirlwind of how I ended up there, and no regrets at all. I loved the program. I still talk to Dr. Shin, and I was bummed out with Dr. Shaw left to Fullerton. Huge loss for the department, but it's a lot of great professors at state. I loved it.
When I looked at your LinkedIn and the things that you did at San Diego State, the one that jumped out at me that I want to ask you about is something that I wish that I had done. That is you studied abroad. You went to China. Tell us how you found out about the opportunity and how you got there. You went to China as a student. Tell us more about this, please.
Yeah, it was super cool. I actually got a scholarship for that too. That's what was one of 2 scholarships I got at state. It was awesome. It was only a 3-week program, but we went to Tsinghua, which is like the MIT of China. It's in Beijing. And we studied there for 5 days, and we pretty much got acclimated. We got to meet all these students from there, which are like the best and brightest in that country. And then they sent us all to different parts of the region. We went to Anhui, which is like in the middle of like China, like very rural. I was literally the first American, or maybe even foreigner, that some people had thought or had ever seen. I had people literally following me around town because they're like, "Who is this person that's not Chinese?" And it was a really surreal thing. I was signing autographs. It was like really surreal. But yeah, no, went there and I taught English for a 2-week program to seniors in high school before as they were preparing to go off to college. And then the other people that we went with, the other students from Tsinghua, they were teaching like physics and British English, and I mean just math and all these other programs. But it was a time in my life where, because we were in this rural town, you know, we pretty much had the same routine every day. We woke up, we all went together, had breakfast at the hotel, very small, like little, like, hotel, nothing fancy. And then we went and taught school. We'd play basketball afterwards. We'd go back to the hotel, have dinner, and just hang out. And here at state or not in the States, you get so adjusted to like materialistic stuff and like the want for more and things like that. And like that really washed away when I was in China, where I was like, man, like I am so satisfied doing what I'm doing right now, where I could just do this as for the rest of my life, live in this small town and teach English to these kids who are super great and play basketball and just hang out and make enough money to get by. And it was awesome. Like, just it was something I had never experienced before, and it quickly washed away once I got home. But it was really like a really fascinating experience. And like I got credit at state for a class, and most of the trip was paid for. So I mean, it was great.
You mentioned a couple of professors. What are some of your other just memories of state, of professors, of classmates, of specific courses that really lit a fire into you and that really helped guide you on your career?
JMS 480 definitely was a nightmare, but also amazing, because it was like the first instance where you really step foot into the program, and like you do this big group project where you're working with a real world client. And we did our project for Health and Human Services for NIMBY, not in my backyard, because there's a homeless problem in San Diego, of course. And they were trying to figure out a PR campaign on how to stop some of the people who were like, I want to help, just don't put it next to my house. And so we came up with this really great proposal. We got a B. We didn't get to present. We were the 4th highest score in class out of like 10 groups. Not bad, but not good enough to talk to the client in person. But it was cool. It was really cool. 480 was awesome. 481, you do that same project, but now you're out by yourself. I did mine for San Diego Half Marathon. And that's where I found out that Groupon is a very bad deal for the company, because you have to charge half the price of your whatever your retail price is, and then you give 25 half of that profit to Groupon, so you're only walking away at 25%. I was like, that just doesn't seem good for any so I was like, man, Groupon, you guys are crazy. But did that project. That was really cool. 310W was cool.
I want to go back to the nightmare and amazing and NIMBY. I'm curious, as a student then, and as you reflect back on it now, just the process of thinking through this idea. What is it that we can do to change the narrative about this? That you and your classmates who are on this group project explain the collaboration of coming up with this idea and the different possibilities that you have, and then how you end up on this idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think 480 is a great example of really showing you the importance of research. Everyone says it's a nightmare because Dr. Shah was like, no holds bar, like high expectations, hold you to your, like that's where the nightmare came from. Dr. Shah is amazing. Once you graduate 480, she's a wonderful person that you want. But during that first class, she's like, I'm going to weed out the people who shouldn't be here. kind of mentality about it. So it's just a lot of work, very high standards. Working within groups in college is always a nightmare for the most part, because you always have a few people who don't do anything. You have a few people who really want to control everything. But yeah, you get to value research on a whole nother level than you probably have. Because everything we do in PR is grounded in that research, seeing what is the successes and failures of the past, so you're informed. And then, yeah, getting to like build a SWOT and like come up with your ideas. And it's just, it's your first experience doing all those things. And so it's really new to you. And you're just like a bit lost, kind of like fake it till you make it to a certain extent. And again, you have 8 to 10 people all trying to come together and learn at the same time about like what you're really trying to do. But at the end, when it comes together, it's like so gratifying, knowing that like, hey, I did it. Like I got through this. It's probably the hardest class I took at State, just overall. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, Dr. Shaw purposely, I think, made it. If you can get through 480, you can get through this major on purpose. And most of us did. I don't know if everyone did.
Let's discuss your transition from student to intern to working professional. Who were some of the mentors that you had or people that helped you meet the right people that started you on your path from student to professional?
I was, again, like I started at 24, so I came out when I was 27. I was in my senior year. And so I kind of like came in like a very calculated, just like how I picked SDSU as a very calculated school. Like I was also very calculated in the way I was approaching graduation. So I was very involved in PRSSA and going to like the PRSA young professional meetings. I networked like crazy. And so I wouldn't say I really had any true mentors at State. Nicole Vargas was fantastic. She was always open ears. And like the class, I think it was 585, was great in terms of like helping you get prepared. But I really sought like kind of mentorship outside of State. And Courtney Pendleton, she was at the YMCA, or she was at Red Cross at the time. She's at YMCA now. She was super helpful. I interned for her when she's at Red Cross throughout my senior year. And she knew I had this obsession with wanting to work at Fleischmann, and she used to work at Fleischmann. And so, she helped set me up with people there. She was just really helpful. It gave me a lot of feedback, really talked me through some times where I was getting a lot of like red marks on like press releases I was writing for her. And I was like, man, like, I don't even know if I'm ready to graduate. Like, you're just like shredding this thing. And like, she like really comforted me and like, let me know like, hey, like, don't like take it so personal, and like, I've been working here years. And so, she was really helpful. And then, I went to Porter Novelli as an intern also. And, Hillary Schuler Jones, she was my boss there. She was also really helpful. I networked with her because she worked for the Red Cross as a volunteer. And Courtney again helped set me up with her, and we went and had lunch. And then like 2 months later, she just called me. I was like, hey, Dustin, like we have an intern position here in San Diego. Like, do you want it? And I started working for her and got to work on like Aquafina for a little while. And I ended up transitioning up to LA once I graduated from Porter Novelli and worked on Uncle Ben's Rice and some other interesting stuff. But yeah, those two, I'd say like while I was at State my senior year were like super helpful. Probably because they're my boss, each my boss, but yeah, super cool. But again, I've kept in touch with Dr. Shen over the years, and she's always amazing. And I'm really glad she's still there. So yeah, shout out Dr. Shen. You're the best.
When you look back on all those red marks on press releases, and even now, as you think about what you do and any type of mentoring that you do of students, what are some of your reflections on just the value of being around people who tell you things, even if you don't necessarily want to hear those things, about the quality of your work at the time?
As the co-founder of Ember and then having senior positions at my past agencies, like I think it's the hardest part of the job is balancing that relationship, because especially, with young folks now, company culture is so important to me. And I really try to approach every person on my team as like I'm their mentor. And we also build a relationship that's a friendship, and when you have to give that tough feedback, sometimes it gets very difficult because it does get taken a little personal, because like, oh, I thought we were like buddies. Like, why are you like dunking on my work? and it's like, it's not that, dude. It's like, you're awesome, but like, you're also like, let's talk about how we can get this to where it needs to be, because I know you have that potential to get there, so yeah, I think like managing that relationship when you're working with people and you have to give that feedback is very difficult, because you want to maintain a healthy relationship where they feel like they can come to you and share what they're working on, and like when they have questions, but also having to still have that line where they understand that like you're still like their supervisor. So yeah, it gets tricky and can definitely create some bumps. But one thing that I've always prided myself on is I don't like to micromanage. I don't think anybody does, but I want people to become their own professional. I don't need a press release that you write to sound exactly how I would write it. I want it to sound, as long as it has all the information there, it's clean, concise, polished, great. If it's, that's cool. That's perfect. Like, be your own you. I don't need you to be me. So that's something I try to enforce with anybody I work with, is on my teams, that create your own style. Be yourself.
So you're working on these different campaigns. You've got Aquafina, Uncle Ben. You mentioned a couple of those. Give us what happens next. What are some of the biggest things that you do that fall into your lap that get you to a place where you start now working on video games?
Well, my internship ended at Porter Novelli, and I was panicking because I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And Grayling had an account coordinator role, and I applied for it, and I got super lucky. I got the job. And on the interview, she was like, yeah, I'd be working on like HireVue and Sun Edison, and which HireVue is like a commerce platform for hiring like AI, using AI. And Sun Edison, that was a power company. I think they went under. But then Blizzard was one of those clients, and I was like, oh man, I love Blizzard. That's so cool. And so I got the job and started working on Blizzard, helped them launch Warlords of Draenor, a big expansion for World of Warcraft. I helped launch the initial Hearthstone game, which was really cool, because I grew up a Blizzard fan. Again, top 5 World of Warcraft guild. So getting to work on the game now was so exciting for me, and getting to go to Blizzard headquarters. And then I had a recruiter reach out to me and was like, hey, what do you think about this agency? And they just do video game PR. And I was like, I'm good. I'm happy where I am. And then a few months later, things weren't as peachy where I was at. And I was like, you know what? Are you guys still looking? So I hit up that recruiter, and she's like, yeah, let's talk. And so we talked, and boom, next thing you know, I'm starting at 47 Communications, got onboarded right onto EA, Electronic Arts, and worked on that the whole 6 years I was there. Also did some kind of like oddball stuff, working on like Start Engine, which was a equity crowdfunding platform that just started that kind of like industry at the time, which was really interesting. Worked with Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, Weeby. Gotta make sure I say it right, so my old boss doesn't call me like, you butchered the name. You know the name. But EA is fantastic. I know that they get voted as like one of the most hated companies in the world every year, and the people there are amazing though, and there really is a true desire to create great games that people are going to love. And a lot of the people that I worked with are still there, or I still talk to them regularly, even if they've moved on. So created like a lot of relationships, but that was the transition, really just kind of lucked into it in a bit. But for anybody listening who wants to work in games, like there are avenues you can take, look up people, I guess, like me who work in games. Again, I'm always happy to help a SDSU alum or a new graduate or alum out, giving you guys advice on how you can get into the field, or if you're looking for jobs. I know a lot of different agencies, a lot of different people. There's a lot. I feel like there's more avenues now, or at least I know of them now. So yeah, find the people. I guess if I had to give you advice, I would say figure out what company that you like working at, or you see yourself working at, and then do the work of like, okay, go on LinkedIn. I want to work at EA. I want to work in PR. Who is on the communications team? Who are the hiring people that do hiring for the communications team? So look up the talent team, look up the PR team, request informational interviews. Like kind of got me my interview with got me my job at Porter Novelli. It's gotten me introductions with lots of different companies that I'm passionate about. It's a very beneficial tool because there's no strings attached. It's just you know, letting people know that you're interested in working there. So take advantage of that tool and reach out, get your name out there so that when you're ready or you have people already in your corner, or maybe something will pop up on there and then they can just reach out to you directly.
I'm not sure exactly how to quantify this next question, so maybe you can do so for me. But you mentioned these games that you've worked on, and you already knew some of them. How important is it to not just know video games, but to actually play a certain game or really become an expert on this game in order to properly do the job of promoting this game and being able to sell this game in the way that you need to?
So members of the community, gaming community, would say that you absolutely have to be a gaming expert to be able to do PR for video games. And I will tell you that is 100% untrue. Some of the absolute smartest people I had the pleasure of working with at 47 didn't play video games at all. But again, like I mentioned earlier, like they are first and foremost PR people. They understand how to do PR. They understand the function. And if you understand how to do PR and the tactics and research and tools at your disposal, and as you get more experienced, you obviously have your own bag of tricks. You can apply that to almost any industry. So yeah, I mean, you don't really need to be a gamer to work in PR. Now, as someone that works in PR and gaming and is a big gamer, I do feel there are advantages for me. I understand the community. I follow it more passionately than some of my old coworkers probably did. I'm keeping track of the news and, you know, just what's happening. I have that more hands-on experience. So if I'm talking to a developer, I might be able to understand what they're talking about a little bit more in terms of like movement or different things that excite them. Because one thing I like to do with a developer is like, hey, like what excites you about this game? Because if it excites you, I want to know so I can take that and process it into a digestible message for our audience, because it'll probably excite them if we can tell it to them in the right way. So being able to have those like conversations where the person you're talking to knows that you, at least on some level, understand what they're talking about. I do think there is a benefit there. But yeah, do you have to be a gamer? Do you have to play video games? Absolutely not. You can still crush it in this industry without any experience actually playing the games.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm not a gamer. As a kid, I played Donkey Kong. I played Galaga and pinball. And when I go to arcades, I just play like the games from the 80s because it's nostalgia. So that's the backdrop for my next question, which is when you're promoting these games, what is it that you're promoting? Like, what is the concept? What is the idea behind who we're trying to reach and how we're going to reach them in order to let them know about this game or to get them even more passionate about this game?
Yeah, I think it's definitely understanding your target audience, right? Like if you are working on a mobile title that's like Merge Mansion, for instance. I worked on Merge Mansion. It's a really viral video game. People have probably seen it. If you're listening, Pedro Pascal was in this really cool trailer that we did for them at the top of last year at my last agency. But it's a little bit more like it's not core gaming, right? Their target audience is like middle-aged women. So understanding that you're not trying to talk to the 18-year-old male who likes playing Battlefield. It's a completely different audience. So when you're looking at that, you're also figuring out like, okay, well, what media does the 40 middle-aged woman read? And how can we take this game and its features or what you're doing and make that something that those outlets will want to read about? And that's why like we target like a Pedro Pascal to be in this trailer, because Pedro Pascal is very popular with everyone. So being able to take his involvement and then get like a full feature in Refinery 29, which we did, was really cool. But then if you're working on Battlefield, well, that's core gaming, FPS, very hardcore gamer type, very hardcore game for, takes a very good PC to be able to play. So it's not, your average person is probably not popping in Battlefield, so then you're talking to IGN, you're talking to GameSpot, the big gaming outlets that eat that kind of stuff up, and their core audience is that gamer, so yeah, I'd say, in terms of the game itself, I always try to ask a team, like, what are you trying to solve with this game? I think every time you start a new project, there's something that's influenced you. Like, man, I like that, but I could do it better. This needs to be fixed. I'll do it in this. So, or maybe it's even just your last game and you want to improve on it in some way. So it's like, what problem are you trying to solve? What makes you unique? I think I like the first two questions because those are the things we're really going to highlight. And then from there, you talk about what kind of gameplay and what are your core features, and you kind of build on messaging from there. Like what's most exciting, but kind of again figuring out what problem you're trying to solve, what makes you unique. It's a great starting question for a development team to then figure out what narrative we're going to create and who we're going to be talking to.
You did a really good job of giving us two different areas where you might try to reach people. Is there any other? I feel like so often nowadays it's like, oh yeah, let's just put something on social media and let's see if we can get it to go. What are other different places where you're trying to reach people with your message? Whether it's this type of game or this type of clients or this type of whatever else I'm forgetting right now.
Yeah, I mean, there has been no bigger shift in the industry in the last 5 years, maybe longer, but we'll say 5 years for sure, than influencers. Especially with gaming, earned media is still fantastic. You 100% want to be talking to the GameSpots, IGNs, Game Informers of the world, but people don't consume content anymore just through media. They can go direct to the source. So when we're doing PR for one of these games, we're also thinking okay, what Instagram influencers or people who are on Instagram that are maybe outside of media but create content are getting a lot of attention? And can we get them to play the game? Can we get them to talk about the game? Should we invite them to an event? Streamers, we're looking at Twitch or maybe now Kick also, which is a newer streaming platform, but Twitch for sure. Who are the big names on Twitch? Shroud, Ninja, different names like that, Pokimane. And can we get them to play our game? How much is that going to cost? Because you start getting the big influencers, it starts becoming a big check involved in getting them to play, but it's also multi-pronged, you're talking to these big influencers if you have the budget, but you're also looking at micro influencers who are just excited to get a free copy and will play your game. And maybe they only have 10,000 followers on Twitch or 5,000, but they're getting a few hundred people every stream, So yeah, in gaming especially, probably again in every industry, the influence of creators cannot be understated. It's 100% a part of the process now. And if you are not thinking about utilizing creators as part of your PR campaign, then you are missing a huge section of potential consumers.
All right, I may not be a huge gamer, but I am a huge Star Wars fan. And you told me that you've worked on Star Wars Battlefield and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So tell me some more stories about working on Star Wars video games and really what it means when you take an iconic movie and you're trying to deliver the message about the video games involved with them.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say two coolest things is I got to meet Cameron Monaghan multiple times. One day I sat in a press event with him where we were doing in Hollywood. And so I got to hang out with him for the day. And then another time I met him at Star Wars Celebration. He's the main character for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Cal Kestis. He also plays the Joker in Gotham. He's a fantastic actor and a really nice person. Probably doesn't remember me, but he's awesome. And then the other one was when we were doing Star Wars Battlefront 2. Anytime you're working with Star Wars, you're working directly with Lucasfilm, because they obviously are very protective of their IP, and they should be. It's a very fantastic IP. So you work with them directly, but we did this awesome review event. We had at least 50 media out to Anaheim at the Hilton. And then we all got to go to Disneyland afterwards. And they actually rented out the bar in Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. It was awesome because the whole park was closed and we were still there. And so, just getting to be in Disneyland with all these people that I care about from both the media side and the EA side and the Lucas side, all there, just celebrating the launch of this awesome game. And then getting to walk out of Disneyland and the whole park's empty. It was the one time you could ever take a photo. The cast actually told us this. They're take a picture in front of the castle because it's still lit up. And it's this is the only time in your entire life you will have the opportunity to take a picture in front of the castle with nobody in the background. So we all did at 1:30 in the morning. So it was really cool. Those are my two favorite moments working on Star Wars. But yeah, getting to work with such an iconic IP is super cool. Just there's so much that goes into it, honestly. From creating the stories to just making sure everything looks the way it's supposed to look. Like people at EA got access to like the Lucas Vault to go and like do like capture of like the equipment to just make sure it looks like the real stuff in the game. There's no mistakes. So yeah, man, working on Star Wars is a blast, and you just get so much insight into how the sauce is made, and the Lucas people are actually super cool. So yeah.
You just made me that story, which I love, also made me just think of something else. You said you had 50 people, 50 media members. You could probably have 500. You probably have 5,000. Think about the number of people who would want to attend an event that is as cool as what you just described. How do you go about selecting who are the right media members to invite to an event like this to get the maximum exposure?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of people that we can't invite. There's only so many seats. So, we try to be as like fair as possible, but the most obvious is like we're obviously looking at like the readership of your outlet. How much reach do you have? Your UMV, unique visitors per month. What's that number look like? But it's not just about that. It's also like what kind of engagement do you have? Because look, we could invite a CNN and they have like 50 million readers, but how many people at CNN actually care about Star Wars? Because this event is to play the game and provide a hands-on look at the game, right? They're probably not getting as many clicks as an IGN, even though IGN has far less readers. And then even going down to like the smaller gaming sites that we invite that review the game and provide their insight. Like we're really looking at like who is like balancing, right? Number of readers versus reaching our actual audience for the title. If we're trying to do a feature that speaks broader than just the game itself, then sure, then we're looking at the USA Today's, we're looking at the New York Times kind of pieces for those bigger feature stories. Cameron Monaghan probably talking to outlets like that more than they're talking to like the core gaming outlets. But yeah, it's just a balancing act of looking at readership, looking at engagement, and then of course, what are the things that you've said in the past? If you're media, I'm sorry, but if you're out there completely dunking on a game or a company all the time, and then you get upset that they didn't invite you to an event, I don't know what to really tell you. Like you can't, just bash someone 90% of the time and be, oh, they didn't do this thing now. It's like, there's got to be some understanding there.
Absolutely. All right, Dustin, we're going to start to wrap things up. But before we get to the point of the podcast where we brag about other alums, what else have I forgotten to ask about your career? What other advice do you want to give out to people? I want to give you just kind of an open floor about whatever I've forgotten to bring up that you think is important in this discussion.
Oh, man. Other advice, finding work-life balance is so important. I've had plenty of coworkers that grind the midnight oil, and I'm a huge advocate of, man, if it can get done tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. PR is a very demanding career, and burnout is 100% a real thing. So find a balance for yourself that allows you to enjoy life outside of work, and work for a company that truly appreciates the fact that you have a life outside of work and is going to let you live it, because life is too short. And honestly, I mean, right here, when you're working a lot of overtime, it also can not benefit you. And like people thinking like, hey, why are you always working overtime? Are you like managing your time poorly? So just don't work overtime as little as possible. Like there's going to be times you have to put it in the work. But like I said, find a company that values your time as much as you do, and make sure that you're finding the time outside of work to enjoy it, because it's just work at the end of the day.
Well, along those lines, how often do you still get to play video games for fun? Not because you're researching something, but just for fun.
Not as much, because my wife doesn't like it. And I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm getting very close to platting, which is like 100% completion. Spider-Man 2. I'm at 93%. I'll probably finish it tonight, but I don't play too many single player games at this point, just because I look at gaming as a way to interact and engage with my friends. And so I try to take at least one night a week. I'll jump on at like 9:30 after the kids are laying down or the night's winding down and play with some friends for a couple hours, but not as much. I'd say, that's a danger of anytime you work in a space that you also are passionate about. If you're working on games all day, do you want to like play games all night? Like sure, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, awesome, just all day, every day. But once you have a family, priorities change. So once or twice a week right now is all I get.
All right, let's wrap things up as we always do, and that is by just bragging about other San Diego State alums who are working in really any field, but we usually focus on communications. And so the floor is yours to give a shout out to anybody who you know or just know of who is making us proud from San Diego State.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I mentioned her to you earlier in one of our emails, but shout out to Morgan Lavender. She's a director at the NFL. We were really good friends in college, and we still keep in touch a little bit today. Obviously people drift, but she's done a fantastic job. Like I mentioned earlier, I was very calculated in the way what I was doing. I was graduating, and so is she. She went to Berlin Rosen. She knew she wanted to work there when she was still in school. Traveled to New York, met people there, did those informational interviews, got a job, pivoted that into working for Trish James, the DA for New York, and then pivoted that into the NFL. And so I was very jealous when I saw her at the Super Bowl last year in her all red outfit. So yeah, Morgan's killing it, man. Really proud of her. She's, very smart, again, very calculated person, everything she does. Diana Puckett, she graduated 1 year after me. She worked at Dell for a little while. She actually just went back to San Diego. She's working for Baba Communications, but again, like she too was like very determined on what she wanted to do when she graduated and found a great job at Grayling before she even got out of school. So she was all set up. So yeah, Diana and Morgan, two of my friends when I was there, and they've both done a great job since graduating and having successful careers.
All right, for my alum this week, this is going to sound a little bit self-serving, but hear me out here. My alum is Megan Labisaw, and I first met her when she was working for Arcadia Publishing and the History Press. I did not know at the time that she was a San Diego State alum. It was one of the books that I've written, and I'm working with Megan. She was the editor. She was a very helpful editor. And I don't recall exactly when it was that we realized that both of us had attended San Diego State. But once we did, I felt like it was the universe just bringing a couple of Aztecs together, right? Like she was on the other side of the country. I was in Albuquerque. She was, I think it was in South Carolina or something like that. So we had no reason to think that either one of us would have attended San Diego State. And then we realized that we both did. And it was just super cool to know that I'm working on this book and the editor for the book is also a San Diego State alum. Megan no longer works for Arcadia. She now works for O'Reilly Media. She has been there for about 2 years, but she's just been involved in acquiring books, in commissioning books, in editing books, and partnering with different instructors in a wide variety of areas, e-learning, development editing, content strategy. And so she has just become a true star in the publishing world. And I felt honored that I was able to work with her about 7 or 8 years ago. And I just thought it was so cool that we both went to San Diego State.
Yeah, she sounds awesome.
All right, Dustin, thank you for your time. And you're very generous with your time. I loved hearing the story. And thanks for everything that you do just to be a proud alum and to give back to other students as well.
Yeah, no problem, man. Happy to be here. And, hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Final thought, let people know how they can contact you in case they think, hey, I like PR, I like gaming. I need to learn more from Dustin. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely. Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just /Dustin Winn on LinkedIn. And then I just started my own PR agency actually at the end of last year with my colleague Sean Maggard, Ember PR. So we're off and running. You can contact me there though at Dustin@ember-pr.com. But yeah, definitely add me on LinkedIn. That's probably your best bet. I check it pretty often. I actually respond to messages there, unlike a lot of people. So yeah, reach out.
Once again, that is Dustin Winn. He is the co-founder of Ember PR. He is a video game PR executive. My name is Josh Suchon. I'm your host. Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms in person or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.